Authentic. He wanted to really be, hardcore. And I said, I think I can get you guys there, but it's gonna be real dirty. So if the crew's willing to get a little dirty to make a dirty movie, we can make it happen.
Yeah, this is yet another charge for Suge Knight related to the movie Straight Outta Compton. This time he is accused of texting a death threat to the movie's director.
Good evening. A Chicago man was killed and 20 other people were wounded in disturbances around the country last night. Disturbances linked to the opening of a movie called Boyz in the Hood.
So, think about movies like Training Day, New Jack City, Boyz in the Hood, Menace to Society, and Juice. These films are considered classics because they tell raw, unfiltered stories about life in the streets, the hood, and the gangsters who rule them. They often draw inspiration from real-life gangsters, giving audiences a gritty glimpse into a world most people only hear about in news reports or urban legends. But to make these movies realistic and hardcore, filmmakers had to shoot in the neighborhoods where these gangsters actually lived. There was no way to tell the story except to understand the world these gangsters inhabit, to see the people up close, and what better way to understand it than to be right there in the thick of it. But shooting in these areas was no walk in the park. It was dangerous, and sometimes the crew and cast got a taste of what life was really like in these neighborhoods. So what exactly did the crew and cast go through to make these classic movies? Let's dive in.
I'm the police! I run shit! You just live here!
Let's start with a fan favorite, which some people argue is Denzel Washington's best work to date, Training Day. Released on October 5th, 2001 by Warner Bros. Pictures, it received generally positive reviews from critics who praised the performances of Washington and Ethan Hawke. The film garnered numerous accolades and nominations, with Washington earning the Academy Award for Best Actor and Hawke being nominated for Best Supporting Actor at the 74th Academy Awards. Now, to make Training Day as authentic as it was, director N.W.A wanted to shoot on location in some of Los Angeles' most infamous neighborhoods.
There's no other way to tell the story unless you understand the world they're in. I wanted the whole crew to get in the environment, see the people, to see what the movie's about, to feel the texture of the world.
CLE Shahid Sloan, the gang technical advisor for the film, recalls that when Fuqua told him about wanting to shoot in these locations, he warned that it would get a little dirty. He told the crew that if they were willing to get dirty to make a dirty movie, then they could make it happen.
Authentic. He wanted to really be, hardcore. And I said, I think I can get you guys there, but it's gonna be real dirty. So if the crew's willing to get a little dirty to make a dirty movie, we can make it happen.
This was no small task. Some neighborhoods even had a strict no cameras policy.
No cameras have been in Imperial Courts the way we were. And in the jungle, they have a policy of no cameras. Totally.
One of the biggest challenges was that Denzel Washington himself had to check in with the Crips gang before they could even begin shooting because they wanted to film in one of the most off-limits places in the area. So Denzel and the director had to meet with the gang, show them the trailer, and even hire some of them to be part of the shoot.
We remember that famous scene in Training Day in Imperial Courts.
Yeah.
Do you remember when they filmed that out there?
Hell yeah, man. I was a little kid. First of all, y'all just can't come over here without, involving our hood. Denzel came over there and he grabbed a group of guys and hired them. Got the homies to watch the trailers and shit like that, and then we just got in good. But far as coming over there and pressing and all that, yeah, we was on their ass.
If they hadn't done this, things could have gone south very quickly. Police officer later commented on one of the filming locations, saying that the things that went down there were things you would only see in movies, highlighting the real danger the crew faced.
Have you ever seen the movie Training Day? The very end where they're in that cul-de-sac, that's where I did my probation. So it's called the Southwest Division. I did my probation there for a year, really crazy stuff. Shit that I only would see in movies type shit, like legitimately. It was bad. It was really bad.
And thanks to their technical advisors, the Training Day crew eventually obtained permission to shoot in the Imperial Courts housing project. This was the first time LA street gangs had allowed a film crew to be brought into that neighborhood. The crew also filmed in other notorious locations like Hoover Block and Baldwin Village. Parts of the film were shot on a dead-end street called Palmwood Drive, where members of the Black P. Stones Blood Gang were seen on the rooftops. Now, thankfully, things went smoothly for Training Day, but the same can't be said for Straight Outta Compton.
So police think they have the authority to kill a minority.
cause I ain't do.
Straight Outta Compton is considered a classic film that chronicles the rise of the legendary rap group N.W.A. at a time when rap hadn't yet become a major part of pop culture. The biopic received positive reviews from critics who praised its performances, direction, screenplay, and musical sequences. However, it wasn't without criticism, as many pointed out various historical inaccuracies. But despite this, the film was a box office hit, grossing over $201 million on a production budget between $28 million and $50 million. Now, this film's production wasn't smooth sailing. It faced several controversies, including issues with casting calls and multiple acts of violence on set. Tragically, one person was killed. The set experienced a drive-by shooting, and they even had to hire actual gang members for protection. Back in September 2014, during the filming of Straight Outta Compton, the cameras rolled in the parking lot of the Santa Monica Civic Auditorium. Actors playing conservative protesters held up signs saying "Crap Rap N.W.A." and symbolically destroyed a pile of the group's records with a steamroller. Later, a group of young extras, many of whom weren't even born when Ice Cube, Dr. Dre, and Eazy-E were making waves with their politically charged lyrics, lined up outside the auditorium to film a concert scene.
For those who know the song, raise your hand. Okay, so I want to say about half the crowd. The other half who needs to hear it a couple times, raise your hand.
The set was carefully crafted to recreate the late 80s, featuring an old-school tour bus, a retro TV news van, and extras flaunting their favorite throwback hairstyles and thick gold-plated dookie rope chains that were popular back in the day. Dr. Dre spent most of his time in his luxurious trailer, while another producer, Tamika Woods-Wright, Eazy-E's widow, was rarely seen on set. Despite this, there were plenty of opportunities for celebrity sightings. Director F. Gary Gray, who had previously collaborated with Ice Cube on Friday, was seen walking around, engrossed in his notes. Ice Cube himself, who also served as a producer for the film, strolled by in his signature dark shades. Nearby, his lookalike son, O'Shea Jackson Jr., who plays his father in the movie, was preparing for a scene. Although he was in good spirits, Jackson Jr. politely declined a reporter's request for a photo while he was sporting his Jerry curl wig, saying, "Not while I'm wearing this." Naturally, when casting for Straight Outta Compton began, accusations of nepotism were quick to surface. Jimmy Kimmel even joked with Ice Cube, asking if his son had to audition for the role of Cube himself.
So when I told him, I said, I want my son to play me, he almost lost it.
Yeah.
He was like, "Cube, damn, man. I thought we was making a real movie." "What you mean?" I said, "Dude, I would not ask him, I would not put him in this position if I didn't think he could do it."
But it wasn't just Cube's son, O'Shea Jackson Jr., who was vying for a part in the film. Dr. Dre's eldest son, Curtis, auditioned but didn't make the cut. Eazy-E's eldest son, who goes by the rapper name Lil Eazy-E, also tried out and didn't get the part. TMZ reported that Lil Eazy was upset about not being cast, but he later denied this, saying he actually helped coach the actor who did land the role, Jason Mitchell. Mitchell even visited Lil Eazy at the Compton home where both Eazy-E and his son grew up, receiving tips and notes to better portray the legendary rapper. However, the behind-the-scenes atmosphere wasn't always as friendly. First off, for the sake of authenticity, the filmmakers had to shoot some scenes in Compton, where gang activity remains a reality. This decision inadvertently reignited old gang rivalries, causing tensions to flare and tragically resulting in the death of one man. The filmmakers were forced to negotiate with local gangs to maintain peace on set, and this constant threat of violence added a dangerous edge to the production, reminiscent of the violent days of West Coast hip-hop. They needed someone who knew the lay of the land, so the filmmakers brought on CLE Bone Sloan, a Bloods affiliate, to help navigate the tricky terrain. Bone, who had appeared in the movie Training Day, was there to keep things authentic and keep local tensions in check. According to a lawsuit, his duties included recruiting known gang members to serve as cast members and extras for the filming, as well as to provide security for on-location shooting in gang-controlled neighborhoods. Bone had a long-standing beef with Suge Knight, spanning more than a decade of bad blood. One of Bone's tasks was specifically to keep Knight away from the set. Unfortunately, this hiring decision would turn out to be deadly. After taping a promotional spot for Straight Outta Compton at a Compton barbershop called Holiday Styles in January, the crew broke for lunch and headed to their trailers on North Bullis Road, a Pyru-controlled area. Knight showed up in his red Ford F-150 Raptor, which sent Dre's team into a panic, according to Bone's account to the police. Knight approached Ice Cube's head of security, Kibo, calmly saying, "I come in peace. I didn't come down here to start no problems. That's why I came by myself." Kibo later told Esquire UK, "I want to request a meeting with Cube, and it don't have to be today." He was cool, collected, not looking for trouble. An insider who wanted to stay anonymous said Kibo assured Knight that his compensation for allowing an actor to portray him in the film would be sent soon. But before anything could be peacefully resolved, Bone showed up and got in Knight's face. They had a heated exchange before the sheriff stepped in and Knight left. Knight was heading home when he got a call from Terry Carter, a local guy with his fingers in a lot of pies. Carter worked on lowriders and had started a record label called Heavyweight with Ice Cube. He offered to help smooth things over between Knight and the filmmakers. They met near Tam's Burgers on West Rosecrans Avenue, talking through their car windows. But Bone, who had apparently followed Knight, arrived too. He jumped a fence and started beating Knight through his truck's window. In the chaos, Knight sped off, accidentally running over Bone's ankles and tragically killing Carter, who had stepped out of his car.
Where Knight's truck apparently runs over the two men. The truck backs up, hits one man. Seconds later, the truck comes back and runs over.
The filmmakers would also face a wrongful death lawsuit filed by Terry Carter's widow, Lillian Carter. The suit seeked unspecified damages from Universal Studios, Dre, Cube, Tam's Burgers, and others. It alleged that the defendants knew or should have known that putting Knight and Bone in proximity could lead to a violent confrontation and collateral damage. In addition, Knight allegedly issued multiple threatening warnings to the film's director, F. Gary Gray, during filming.
Yeah, this is yet another charge for Suge Knight related to the movie Straight Outta Compton. This time he is accused of texting a death threat to the movie's director.
Though Gray would later testify that he couldn't recall any calls or texts threatening his safety, Deputy District Attorney Cynthia Barnes suggested this was intentional perjury, possibly out of fear. Knight was supposedly furious about how he was depicted in the movie and felt slighted that he wasn't compensated for his portrayal. The production also faced public relations issues. In August 2014, a casting call for actresses was widely criticized as racist. The memo categorized women by their looks and skin tone, with A girls being the hottest of the hot, B girls needing to be light-skinned, and D girls expected to be out of shape with medium to dark skin tone. The message was clear: the darker the skin, the less attractive the actress. This caused an uproar and cast a shadow over the production. Now, back in the 1990s, whenever one of these movies hit the cinemas, every street gang and gangster wanted to see it. With not many cinemas around, everyone ended up in the same place. This led to some of the most violent nights in American history, with gang rivalries erupting right outside the theaters.
Good evening. A Chicago man was killed and 20 other people were wounded in disturbances around the country last night. Disturbances linked to the opening of a movie called Boyz in the Hood.
Gunshots erupted just minutes before the movie started last night in Universal City, California. 5 young men were wounded. In downtown Minneapolis, 6 people were shot.
Take Boyz in the Hood, for example. On July 14th, 1991, 23-year-old writer-director John Singleton debuted his masterpiece, Boyz in the Hood. This haunting story depicted the lives of young black men in the gang-ridden South Central Los Angeles, and starred notable Hollywood actors like Cuba Gooding Jr., Ice Cube, Angela Bassett, Lawrence Fishburne, and Morris Chestnut. The final frame of the movie features the message "Increase the Peace," a plea directed at both the 800 gangs in LA at the time and the LAPD, who are portrayed in the film as an antagonistic force engaging in racial profiling and harassment in hopes of provoking arrests. Despite this call for peace, gang violence erupted at theaters nationwide on opening night. John Singleton spent the opening night moving around Los Angeles, discreetly slipping into the back of theaters to observe the audience, as directors often like to do. Just minutes after he left the Cineplex Odeon theaters in Universal City near downtown LA, gunfire broke out, wounding 5 people. The lights went down, and the screen lit up, and then it just went crazy. There was gunfire. These guys were just chasing each other all over. A 19-year-old moviegoer told the LA Times. Another moviegoer told the Associated Press, people were stampeding. People were running into the bathroom. The violence wasn't limited to Los Angeles. Reports of shootings came in from theaters near gang territories such as Universal City, Upland, and Chino, as well as from theaters far from gang areas including San Francisco, Sacramento, Minneapolis, Riverdale, Illinois, Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and New Springfield, Massachusetts. In total, there were incidents at 20 of the 900 theaters showing the movie. For instance, 4 people were arrested in Jersey City after a fight broke out in a shopping mall before a showing of the film. In Chicago, a 19-year-old man was stabbed by 2 attackers while leaving a theater. In downtown Minneapolis, a shot was fired inside a theater, possibly with the intention of causing a riot, which allowed shooters in a nearby car to open fire on pedestrians as they fled into the street. This incident resulted in 4 people being wounded, 2 of them critically. Looking back, Frank Price, the chairman of Columbia Pictures who greenlit Boyz in the Hood, shared his perspective with The Atlantic. He suggested that the press might have been eager to sensationalize the violence, stating, "If you had an incident within a mile of the theater, it was somehow connected to Boyz in the Hood. I think that tamped down the box office. There were some people who got the impression that it might be dangerous to go to the movie. It's hard to get people to risk their lives to attend your movie, worthwhile as it may be." In the aftermath of the violence, similar to what happened with incidents in Aurora and Lafayette, there was a re-examination of theater security. As Deadline recently explained, theater security is a factor that is negotiated between studios and exhibitors. When a theater books a volatile movie that could trigger violence, studios in the past sometimes have shared on-site security costs with movie chains. This was Columbia Pictures' approach to the violence associated with Boyz in the Hood. Rather than pulling the movie from theaters, they increased their contributions to security costs. Ultimately, they supported their director, John Singleton, who addressed the press by saying, "The violence is indicative of the degeneration of American society, not a reflection of my film, which is about family, love, and friendship. I didn't create the conditions under which people shoot each other. This happens because there's a whole generation of people who are disenfranchised." Singleton, who based the movie on his own experiences growing up in South Central LA, stood firmly by his creation. "I won't turn my back on my brothers. I hope they don't turn their back on me. To withdraw the film would be an act of artistic racism." His stance highlighted the importance of confronting societal issues through art rather than shying away from them.
Like I'm on the goddamn track team. I'm serious. What's the matter, Ryan?
Another film that faced a similar fate was Juice. This movie delves into the lives of 4 black youths growing up in Harlem, capturing their day-to-day activities, their struggles with police harassment, rival neighborhood gangs, and their families. Juice starred the legendary Tupac Shakur in his acting debut, bringing a raw and authentic portrayal of urban life. Many theaters had ramped up security to prevent a repeat of the violence that had marred the openings of N.W.A. City and Boyz in the Hood, both of which attracted a similar youthful, mostly black audience expected to see Juice. Despite these precautions, outbreaks of gunfire, stabbings, and fights were reported in cities such as Boston, New York, Anchorage, Alabama, Omaha, Nebraska, Lansing, Michigan, and North Little Rock, Arkansas. Police stated that there was no clear indication that any of these disturbances were directly related to the content or message of the movie, and some might have been coincidental. For instance, in Chicago, a 16-year-old girl was shot to death outside a theater where Juice was playing. Detective Roland Polnitsky told the Associated Press that the shooting stemmed from a fight between rival gangs and was not a result of that movie. A 14-year-old boy was charged with murder in the death of Tidsa Cherry. In Cheltenham, Pennsylvania, a suburb of Philadelphia, 18-year-old Marcus Harrington was paralyzed by a bullet to the neck outside a theater in a shopping mall showing the film. The film was showing and the shooting was in the parking lot. That's all we know. A spokesman for the Cheltenham Township Police Department said, "In East Lansing, Michigan, a 17-year-old was shot in the leg during a brawl in the lobby of the Lansing Mall Cinema. Although hospitalized, his wound was not serious according to the police. In Boston, a robbery suspect was arrested in a theater, and gunfire erupted when friends of the arrested man entered the theater and fired shots into the ceiling. In Omaha, a man was arrested for disorderly conduct after allegedly pulling a gun in a theater lobby. Meanwhile, in New York, a fight broke out in a Manhattan theater showing Juice, resulting in a 16-year-old stabbing another.
Your $5 ass down before I make change."
Another movie that sparked gang violence at theaters across the country was New Jack City. Directed by Mario Van Peebles, it's about the rise and fall of a ruthless Harlem drug lord, Nino Brown, played by Wesley Snipes. The movie also stars Ice-T, who often faced criticism for his music being too violent. Ice-T plays one of the undercover detectives trying to take down Nino's drug empire. Nino Brown's character was inspired by real-life figures, specifically the notorious Chamber Brothers from Detroit.
People reference me as the guy that inspired the movie New Jack City. And, you know, a lot of people's jokingly call me Nino Brown.
Just like in the movie where Nino and his crew take over an apartment complex called the Carter to run their drug operation, the Chamber Brothers did something similar. They took over the Broadmoor apartment complex on E Grand Boulevard and Ferry Street, turning it into their fortress and the hub of their drug dealings. The Chamber Brothers weren't your run-of-the-mill gangsters. They were cunning, ruthless, and climbed to the top of Detroit's underworld, leaving chaos and destruction in their wake.
He had served 27 years. Well, I didn't actually serve 27. I served 23 years on a 27-year sentence.
Now, when New Jack City hit the theaters, it was absolute chaos.
New Jack City fucked their opening because someone got shot in a movie theater that weekend. They're like, no black films in theaters. No, sorry.
Okay, all blacks, stay home.
Shop owners were left sweeping up broken glass, and community leaders were scrambling for answers after hundreds of young people went on a rampage in Westwood Village. They looted stores, threw beer cans, vandalized cars, and even tore branches off trees to smash store windows. The chaos started when hundreds of ticket buyers at the Man Westwood Fourplex Theater on Gailey Avenue were turned away from the just-released movie New Jack City. The theater officials insisted they hadn't oversold the movie, but eyewitnesses said the violence was partly fueled by the tensions surrounding the highly publicized beating of Rodney King by Los Angeles police officers. Hesitant to stop the looters, likely due to the public outcry over Rodney King's controversial beating. Many merchants were worried that this violent outburst was part of a troubling trend threatening business in the West Side shopping village. This wasn't the first time that the release of movies popular with black audiences had led to street violence in the area. As a result, all showings of New Jack City and Westwood were canceled. All in all, times change, people change, and so do movies. But the next time you watch or rewatch classics like Training Day, New Jack City, and so on, just remember that behind the scenes, it took a lot for these films to become the timeless classics they are today.